Dr. Miller, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you very much for having me, Sarah. I know you're very busy with all of your work and your 5 gorgeous children.
Yes, my most important vocation was wife and mother. So it is fun to be here, though. I have so enjoyed this whole initiative because I'm getting to meet and talk to and share the stories of women who have really dedicated their lives to witnessing their faith and working for the church. And I can't think of some better stories to tell. So I'm glad that you have had some time to sit down with me because you've been traveling. You're a professor of moral theology at Notre Dame Seminary,
yes.
But you have also taken on a new role recently, which I'm very excited to talk about. But before we get there, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and your faith life.
Certainly. So I am a Cajun girl, so hoorah. From the Diocese of Lafayette. My family's been there since 1740.
Wow.
And my dad was military. So my mom is from this little town called Mamou. My dad's from Opelousas, but we grew up in North Carolina. And the faith was really important to both my mom and my dad. So when we would get up in the morning, they would sit like all of us little 5 Catholic kids down on the sofa, and my mom would read the daily Mass readings. And then my dad would give kind of this historical, critical exegesis call to evangelization from those readings because he had been a seminarian for the diocese for 7 years.
Yes.
Right? So it was a great gift in terms of growing in the faith because, when we're little, when we learn our commandments, we repeat, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength." And sometimes we remember the heart part and we forget the mind. And I think I was very blessed growing up to have parents who really nourished loving God with our minds as well.
And you have taken that to the umpteenth level as a moral theology professor. You are training our future priests in the seminary, and we're blessed with a huge incoming class this year, though you are on sabbatical currently. As a woman, how did that call come to you? You're not what people would necessarily think of as a moral theologian.
No.
So tell us about that. How did you get here?
It's a good question, right? So, because most people usually begin with like, "Oh, you teach at a seminary. Like, are you a nun? Are you consecrated?"
Right.
Their hairdresser last week was like, "Oh, you must be a nun." And I was like, "No, that's not my vocation. It's beautiful, but it's not mine." So when I realized that I had this call to do theology, I started to think, what do you do with this? Like, what can I do with this? And I thought about the fact that so much of my faith formation had come through my father and through his time in the seminary. And so I really had a desire to give back, right? I thought, if my faith has come through the formation he received there, shouldn't I go back there and help to give that kind of faith formation to seminarians and to those who will become our priests? And it's interesting because at the time I didn't think about the fact that that might be unusual for a woman or that people might have a lot of questions about it. And yet the longer that I've taught, been in the seminary environment and taught in the seminary, I've realized that what for me seemed to be kind of a reasonable or rational explanation was really God's desire to give kind of a feminine genius, I believe, to the seminary, right? In our families, right? We have fathers and mothers who help to form children and prepare them for their vocations in life. And I think in the same way it makes sense that in a seminary, right, we would have male and female professors. We would have fathers and mothers who help prepare our seminarians, our future priests, for their vocations in life.
I think that's a beautiful way to look at it, and it makes so much sense in terms of how God has created us and how we are to have and respect and be part of a family that is our church. And you have your new role. I'm going to let you say the name of the institute because it's long. You're delving in deeper into the roles of the masculine and feminine. So tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So the last couple of years, I've really been on this journey in terms of answering some of the questions that I received from my seminarians and also some from priests that I gave clergy study days to. And I think a lot of us are familiar with the Theology of the Body Catechesis of St. John Paul II. There's a beautiful line in there where he says, "A theology of the body rooted in the fact that we are created male and female in the image and likeness of God leads to a theology of masculinity and femininity." And then he does this mic drop. It's very
Nothing
cheesy
more.
too. He's like, I'm going to say something profound. Now have fun.
Right, now go explore.
So the last couple of years, I've really been working on that in terms of scriptural exegesis. But St. John Paul II, with his Theology of the Body catechesis, doesn't just do that. He doesn't just do a scriptural exegesis for us. He really tries to look at all that he sees in Scripture through the experience of faith of St. John of the Cross. So if we're going to talk about what it means to be male or female, masculine and feminine, the idea, the hope, the journey that we've begun in the last couple of months is really to look at this through that experience of faith in different cultures throughout the world. Gaudium et Spes says there are treasures hidden in each culture that further reveal to us the human nature, and that these are meant to profit the church. And so together with the International Institute of Culture and Gender Studies,
There you go.
recently founded here in southern Louisiana, that's what I've been trying to do.
And you have traveled already, and you're going to do some more traveling, hence the sabbatical. What are some of the things that you're finding fascinating, or are you uncovering things as you're just beginning in the work?
Well, I think one of the first things that I found very interesting or fascinating is how much people are interested in these questions. So the first place that I went was to the Native Americans. And I have to be honest, I didn't know a lot about them.
Sure, no, I
But I didn't know that there are over 500 independent registered nations in the United States alone. And going to them and saying, we want to ask these questions of you, we feel not only did people want to answer, did people want to have these conversations? We interviewed 8 or 9 different people. They each spoke for an hour on their personal experience, being from their nation and what it means to be a man or a woman. But they also wanted to hear what we had to say. And so I ended up speaking at a conference there at the Montana Native Women's Coalition annual conference in Montana. And this has seemed to be consistent. I'll be going to Latin America, to Mexico. They've already asked me to speak there. I'll be going to Africa and Kenya. I have a speaking invitation. So it's interesting to see how much people want to give and how much they want to receive. They realize that there needs to be further collaboration on these questions.
And there are societal issues at play when it comes to gender theory. The Vatican recently released a document, probably felt like a gift to you as you're starting this, because there is so much societal tension when it comes to this. Is that playing a role? Are you hearing about that as you're talking with people?
Certainly, and I think, like you said, that document kind of felt like a gift in the sense that paragraph 6 really encourages further investigation of these questions, a better understanding even culturally of the way that we experience being male and female. And what we've kind of found in some of the preliminary talks that we've given in retreats, in schools and parishes, is that often we have people come up afterwards and say, wow, I thought that maybe there was something wrong with me because I don't fit the traditional stereotype of, the man who likes to hunt and fish and drink beer, or I don't fit the traditional stereotype of a very quiet, calm, submissive woman. And now I realize that I can be male and express my masculinity in a way that's unique to me, or female and express my femininity in a way that's unique to me. And if I could give a little saint plug.
Sure.
Today is the feast of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. And he had a very good female friend, Saint Hildegard of Bingen. And she was just this amazing woman who was a tad bit timid at the beginning. God began to send her these mystical visions. And yet through being this abbess of a double monastery, so she was in charge of both men and women, right? She worked at a hospice, so she had knowledge of the medical arts. She went on 4 preaching tours of Europe during her time. We see that there's this necessity for greater collaboration between men and women, as we saw with Saint Bernard of Clairvaux and Saint Hildegard of Bingen, and yet that each person is going to express this in a way that's particular to the call and the gifts God has given them.
And that has been something that I have appreciated about these interviews as well. And we're talking about women in witness, but it is, people forget that women work for the church, work within the church, and always have. And many of the women we've spoken to had that a similar family experience where their mother and father worked together in their faith formation, worked together in their formation as human beings. And so to see and there always has been, but to see even more formal research being done to explore this is just really exciting. And we're so blessed in New Orleans to have you here in South Louisiana to really witness this firsthand. So I want to thank you for bringing that feminine genius to the seminary first. I think that's wonderful, and I think we've done a beautiful job in recent years of training our priests, and now bringing this new gift to the church. It's very exciting, and I hope you'll keep us posted on all of your studies.
I certainly will. Please pray for the Institute as we continue our work, and I'll be blogging and vlogging as I travel, www.redeeminggender.com. So if people would like to follow, or if they could pray or fast, we're trying to, to have a day during the week in which we fast for this work for the church. It would be a great gift.
Definitely. And I think you found your hashtag. Redeeming Gender. Hashtag Redeeming Gender. See, there we go.
It works.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sarah.